Welcome back all to 8-Bit Benny versus the Ferret business. Today, being July 1st, I'd like to say Happy Canada Day! In honor of Canada's 150th birthday, I have done a little bit of redecorating here. See, I've added a little bit of red to the white tower, so we've got a little bit of red and white. Yay! Unfortunately, I had to use wool because I could not find a cobblestone that I could dye red, so oh well. In case you've missed the metrics on some of these videos, I am, in fact, in Canada, hence why we're celebrating Canada Day today. Woo! Alright, enough of that. Today, we are going to revisit something we haven't looked at much since episode 15. We're going to go back to Botania. What we're going to do today is we are going to take a look at our Infinite Mana Tree Farm. I stalled a couple episodes ago on it because I had an issue with one of the flowers not working the way I thought, and I finally solved that issue, and we are going to take a look at, first and foremost, how the farm works, secondly, what that issue was so that you can avoid it when you're in your game. Alright, let's change our view here, and let's head on up and take a look at what's going on here. Alright, so here's our tree farm. We can see we've got a couple naked trees here. So, let's get rid of these trees and see what happens. Let's just let this farm do its magic. No pun intended. So, how does this farm work? Okay. The key to this farm is we have our munch dews here, which are creating mana. How does a munch dew create mana? A munch dew creates mana by eating the leaves off of a tree. So, in order to feed our munch dews, we need to be planting trees and having them grow and having the munch dew eat the leaves. The munch dew eats leaves, creates mana, which then shunts over to this mana spreader, which we can see. And this mana spreader is tied to this mana pool, which then, of course, this mana spreader pulls out of the mana spool, and so on and so forth until we get to the center of our tower. Now, the big annoying thing about munch dews is having to come here and plant the trees. So, what we've done is, ta-da, we've set up a way to have the trees auto-plant. So, back here we have a Ruincarpus. The Ruincarpus will plant will plant any block that is dropped within, I believe, a 3-block radius of it. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, about a 3-block radius, with 1 being the center where the Ruincarpus is planted. It'll pick it up and it will plant it on a specific spot. What is that specific spot? Well, 1 block below where the Ruincarpus is planted is some podzol. The Ruincarpus will look for more podzol within range and plant on top of that block. So, if I were to dig underneath this piece of podzol, there's another piece underneath. The piece of podzol on the bottom is what designates where to plant the flower. I have this one on top just to tell me where to plant the trees, because until recently the Ruincarpus was not picking up the saplings. Why was it not picking up the saplings? Well, funny thing is, I like to use birch saplings because they grow up straight. Unlike oaks that will branch off all over the place and make it hard to cut down, I like to use birch saplings. I, unfortunately, was using silver birch saplings, and if you look at the silver birch sapling, it's part of forestry. The Ruincarpus doesn't recognize it as a sapling, or possibly as an item at all, and it won't plant it. So, I had to go out and find some vanilla Minecraft birch saplings, and now all is good. So, how does this work? Well, we have the trees, and the tree grows. The munch dew eats the leaves, creates mana, leaving a bare trunk. For the moment, we are cutting down the trunks. We'll get into how we're going to auto-destroy those trees in a bit. We'll look in that later. Once the trees are cut down, this hopper hawk, which has no delay, gathers the birch wood and tosses it into this bin here, into this better barrel. Then, if there are any saplings, this hopper hawk is going to look for the saplings and put them into this hopper. The hopper has a designation using an item frame and a birch sapling, which means it will only receive the birch saplings. So, this hopper hawk will only pick up birch saplings because it is the only inventory adjacent to it, and it is limited to birch saplings, which is great because that means this hopper hawk will not pick up any of the birch wood that's dropped. This hopper hawk is planted on mycelium, so that it will come in third on the list of plants to pick up. In Botania, by using dirt, podzol, and mycelium, we can actually set a priority system for the plants. For example, we have a hopperhawk that picks up items and a runencarpus that picks up items. This runencarpus is on a piece of dirt, which means it's a priority 1. So it'll try and pick up as soon as it can. That being said, runencarpuses are a little slow on the pickup to begin with. If there was a plant on some podzol, it would be second in line, and the mycelium is third in line. So this hopperhawk is the last thing around here to pick stuff up. The reason being, I want this hopperhawk to pick up any of the saplings that might fall off of these trees, as well as pick up any saplings that the runencarpus won't plant, so that we're always picking those up, which is great. This hopper feeds into this dropper, which receives a redstone signal from this hourglass. This hourglass, if we hover it with our wand of the forest, will tell us how much time is in there. We have one piece of soul stand giving us a 1-minute timer. So every minute, this hourglass will turn over, push a redstone signal briefly at the dropper. It drops a sapling. The runencarpus then looks and sees if any of these 4 spots is open. If it is, it'll plant the sapling. If not, the other hopperhawk picks it up and puts it back into the hopper, waiting for its next turn. Yay! So that's pretty cool. The runencarpus does require mana, so we have a mana pool down here. We can see it's tied to that. We also have a special flower called the Agricarnation. The Agricarnation, feeding off mana, which is also, the Agricarnation is also tied to this mana pool. The Agricarnation will actually help the trees grow faster. So if we watch the trees for a moment, we're going to see some green sparkles, diamonds. Oh, there we go, right there. So that is the Agricarnation is using mana to speed up the growth of this tree. Once we get this farm really up and going, and I can make sure that this pool will stay full, I'll probably put a couple more Agricarnations out. What else do we have? We have mana spreaders that the munch doos feed to the mana spreader, feeds to the pool, and so on. But what about these guys up here? Well, that's going to be part of the system. There's mana pools with mana spreaders that tie back to this central mana pool, and that's going to be part of the system that we're going to see later on that we're going to use to cut down the trees. Underneath here is where I'm keeping the system that will eventually cut down the trees. We won't see it today. We do have one more step to do, but I'll talk you through it. So the birch wood goes into this barrel, and underneath this barrel, under here, we have a hopper that we can't see at the moment, which feeds into this furnace. So, inside this furnace is a bunch of birch wood. It's going to burn it to charcoal, thanks to our buddy over here, our Exoflame. An Exoflame, which is also feeding off that mana pool, which is why I have to watch that mana pool with 3 things feeding off it. Might be a bit much. So this Exoflame will act as a fuel source for this furnace. So once this charcoal falls out of this furnace, the Exoflame starts the fire going so that it can burn the birch wood, which basically means I'm no longer using wood or coal on this furnace. I'm using mana. Unfortunately, the metal furnace doesn't work with this, just the vanilla furnace, because of course Botania doesn't recognize the other mods in this pack. So that's fine, because we don't need this to go super fast. As you can see, we're full of charcoal, we're full of birch wood. Underneath that, we have a hopper that's full of charcoal. That charcoal then feeds into this open crate. The open crate is receiving a mana signal from this hovering hourglass set for 30 seconds, which sends a redstone signal into this redstone repeater, which is set to a 4-tick delay, which sends power to this block, which will turn off this redstone torch for a moment. Sorry. It will, the redstone torch, which stops the hopper from feeding the open crate. So the torch goes off, it feeds the open crate drops it straight down. So basically we're using an open crate instead of a dropper because the open crates will drop straight down, and there's no variance. We'd have a very small landing pad here. Once charcoal hits here, our endoflames will consume it and create mana. 2 of these endoflames are feeding our mana spreader, which is refilling our pool that our 3 flowers are feeding out of. The other two Endo Flames feed this mana spreader, which is filling up our mana pool down here in the center. Now, here's the tricky part. This apparatus here is what's going to cut down our trees eventually. So what we have here is a force relay. What we can do with a force relay is any mana that goes in, by using our Wand of the Forest, we can actually bind this force relay to one of the pieces of dirt that the trees are growing on. We'll have to experiment with distance. I'm not sure how far away this can be from that piece of dirt if it fails, but once we've got the right lensing, we'll take a look at that next episode. So what happens is we have this mana spreader. We'll get a tick from this hourglass once we have some sand in it, and it'll send a pulse up. It's trying to shoot for this mana pool, which is why we have a mana pool up here. Otherwise, this mana spreader would not shoot. So it shoots up, it hits the force relay. We're going to tie this force relay to the piece of dirt that's above this podzol. Sorry, the piece of podzol that's above this podzol, which means this burst of mana is going to shoot straight up. And it's going to come out of the top of this and go straight through that tree trunk. Not a big deal, because that's not going to do anything to the tree. Well, what we need to do is we need to make some lenses to put onto our mana spreaders, which will change the properties of the mana coming out. What we're going to do is we're going to put a bore lens and a warp lens on these 4 mana spreaders. We're going to use a slime ball to combine them into a bore warp lens, and once they're on here, they'll go into the force relay, and they will go up top, and they will bore through the tree trunk, knocking it down. This hourglass and this hourglass back here will be on a 1-minute timer, which should be plenty of time for the munchdews to grow, or for the munchdews to eat the trees once they've grown, and then these will cut down all the wood. They'll break all the blocks, and then the hoppers will gather it, spit it down here to create more mana to run these. So hopefully this ends up being a mana positive design. We'll have to play a bit with the number of agri-carnations and the number of where our mana spreads are heading to mana pools, because of course if we're directing too many of them out away from the system, then we're running into mana issues. One of the solutions we can do is we can take 1 or 2 of these mana spreaders up here, which are of course receiving all the mana that's going to be destroying these trees, so that'll help fill these pools. Because we want to catch it. We could just send the mana off in the ether, but that sounds pretty wasteful. So we want to catch it in that pool. So we can redirect this mana spreader down here to this pool to help make sure that it stays full. Right now I don't have them directed there because I want to see how the system runs once we have those mana relays up and running and actually boring down the trees. What's stopping me from doing that? Well, let's go look at some lensing. We need to make a couple lenses, and that will be not too bad. What do we have? We have a lot of mana lenses. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8. So that's exactly how many we need. So let's look at some recipes here. We're going to look at our bore lens. So this is a lens that's pretty cheap to make. We're going to need to make 4 of these. So we need 2 pieces of lapis and a redstone. And a piston. Once we combine those with a mana lens, we get a bore lens. So once we have 4 bore lenses, we're halfway there. The next thing we have to do is a warp lens, which is not showing up in my book yet. Let's see if we can get a warp lens up here. Mana lens warp. So what we need for this one is a mana lens and a pixie dust. How do you make pixie dust? Well, you need to throw a mana pearl into an Alfenheim portal, and it will spit out pixie dust. So what have we done? We've started an Alfenheim portal. Uh-oh, I think we just crashed. Oh no, we're back. Okay, whew. I did have the game crash on me once already, so that was interesting. Always fun recording. So let's look in here. Nope, we'll look at that later. No, we'll look at that later too. Here we go, crafting station. So, part of an Alfenheim portal is we are going to need 3 blocks of glimmering living wood. We make that by taking some living wood and putting it with some glowstone. So that's going to make 3 pieces. In case you've forgotten, the living wood can be made by putting normal wood blocks next to a pure daisy and giving it a moment to turn it into living wood. So let's also look for, let's look at our Alfenheim portal. So here's the thing that's stopping us. We need to make an Elven Gateway Core. So in case anyone's curious, this is what the Alfenheim portal looks like. So it's mostly living wood, 3 bits of glimmering living wood, and there's an Elven Gateway in the middle. Sorry, that's a Elven Gateway Core, I should say. The Elven Gateway Core requires Terra Steel. We don't have Terra Steel yet. We'll also notice that our Natura Pylons, which we need 2 of, which are an upgraded version of the Mana Pylon, also need Terra Steel. So the Terra Steel we are going to need to create by creating a Terra Steel agglomeration plate. Wow, say that 3 times fast. By creating this and popping it down into this little configuration. So for this plate to work, we need to have a checkerboard pattern of lapis and living rock. And then we plant the plate on top. Ta-da! And we have a plate. What's that do? Well, what the plate allows us to do is create Terra Steel ingots, which is kind of expensive when it comes to mana. So you can see the great thing about this Botania, you can hit visualization, and it will actually show you where you need to place all the blocks, which is very, very handy. So creating Terra Steel with this apparatus, there's living rock underneath the center. We're going to throw a mana pearl, a mana steel ingot, and a diamond on top, and we're going to get 1 Terra Steel ingot. Of course, we have to feed that with mana. So let's take a look at that. What's the easiest way to feed that with mana? Spark it up. So let's put a spark there. And let's see, let's put a spark right there. So that should link those 2 up. Oops. That is not how you link them. Shift right clicking with a wand of the forest will help you get rid of one of those. So let's see if we can have one of these this episode. We'll see how long this takes to create. Of course, the trick is tossing this onto the plate and not picking it up again. Or do we have to right-click it? Aha! Well, it's actually different than last time. I thought you had to throw it, but right-clicking it's a much better way. So, we can see we've got some fireworks already. We've got our 2 sparks, which are linked together. So this spark is pulling out of that mana pool and feeding mana to this spark, which is feeding into our transformation here. And we can see that our little globy things are floating around. Ta-da! Oh, that actually didn't take too long. You know what? Let's do another one. You know why? Because I think we're going to need 2 of them. Well, actually, we're going to need more than 2 because we definitely need to do... I don't want that in there. We're going to do a couple extra Terra Steel for when we get into making items, such as armor and weapons and stuff like that. So we'll wait a moment while this works. Let's fly up here and check what our... Ooh, that is not good. So, what's wrong here is our mana pool is empty, because that's just how much mana this thing takes to make. So that was a couple days worth of mana there, which will be great once we have the automated tree farm, because anytime we're at the base, we'll be sending mana over here. We don't have to worry about visiting back here and cutting down trees, because I don't know how many times I've been here and had to cut down tree bark to make the next round of trees plant. With luck, we've got enough mana in there. Alright, there we go. Yay! So, we now have 2 Terra Steel ingots. So, let's just break one of those apart. All right. And let's go take a look at what we have over here. So we are starting. Let's grab some of our living wood. We'll make our elven gate core. And we also have our 3 blocks of glimmering living wood, which allows to construct the exterior of the gate. No, I don't want living wood. I want this one. Boom. Gate finished. Well, not quite. So, we do need to make the natural pylons, and we need to fill these mana pools. Well, sorry, we have to get some mana in these mana pools. It does not require a full mana pool to open a gate. It also requires mana to sustain the gate, but it's not too bad. Typically, what I've done is I'll make the gate, I'll toss items through to create whatever I need, then I'll axe out the Elven Gateway core to shut down the gate, and then just leave it, and then I'll put the core back and leave it shut off until I need it next, so that way the mana stays here. Once we have the gate formed, we will not do this. Jumping through the gate is a great way to kill yourself, because this portal does not actually lead anywhere. This is a portal basically of transmutation. You toss items through, such as ender pearls, and the elves on the other side will toss pixie dust back. So that's pretty cool. So basically you exchange items by tossing them to the quote-unquote elves, and the elves toss you back something new. So this is going to be great for making new items, as well as making the pixie dust, which will allow us to make our warp lens. Sorry, our bore lens. And the bore lens is really what we need to get into to cut down those trees. The other great thing is we will be able to toss our Lexica Botania through the portal, and it'll be tossed back with new entries. So by creating the portal, we will actually be able to open up new entries in our book. So that's pretty cool. I like that. That's I think that's kind of a fun little mechanic. So we will build those natural pylons, but we're going to get into doing the Alfenheim portal and setting up those last couple lenses next episode. The last thing I want to look at in this episode, one of my favorite items, Pyroclast Pendant. So this is made by using a Rune of Fire and a Rune of Summer made in our Runic Altar, 4-string, and Mana Steel. So pretty darn cheap. What does it do? Well, it's actually going to protect me from fire, which is pretty cool. So let's just look up the entry here. So this is going to absorb low heat while worn. So I can't catch on fire. It helps protect me from fire or from catching on fire, which would have been a big help when hunting down blazes. It doesn't stop me from taking damage when I'm standing directly on fire or lava. There is an upgraded version of this that we need some of the items that we get from the Alfenheim portal. The upgraded version will actually let me swim in lava and not get hurt, other than suffocation, obviously. The one problem we have with the Pyroclast Pendant is, oh man, but I want to keep my Mana-Seer monocle on. Well, if I remember correctly, we can combine the two. So, bam. So we can actually put both of them in the same slot. I am now fire resistant and stylish because I have a monocle on. So this will make it very easy to go and fetch our other 2 blaze spawners, which I would like to put in the blaze tower over yonder that we looked at last episode, just to up the amount of blazes that are spawning, because eventually I want to really be able to take down a lot of blazes at once. So, tell you what, let's get into the Alfenheim portal and the natural pylons and those bore lenses next episode. I'm going to create the warp lenses off camera since we've looked at the recipe. You guys probably don't want to watch me make them. And then we will make the natural pylons off of camera, and I'll bring you guys back once we have enough mana to open our portal. And then we're going to start tossing some items through. So I hope all of you are having a happy Canada Day, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.